Today we have a very special guest. Jamie Sarche is here to talk about death. Her title, Talking About Death Won't Kill You. Jamie's calling is helping people be less afraid of death by arranging for them to provide their loved ones with a planned and funded funeral or memorial service. They create a path for healing long before it's needed. And by facing their mortality, her clients can live better, more meaningful lives. A seasoned speaker, Jamie brings deep experience in death care to a broad range of audiences around the country, sharing insights and approaches on how to have those difficult conversations and how to address sensitive issues. Extending well beyond death and dying, her message resonates across industries and individuals, bridging her passion to demystify death while enlightening communicators on overcoming challenging conversations. Thank you so much all for being here. Just some quick housekeeping. Please keep yourself muted, and you feel free to come off for questions or put them in the chat. But if you're not asking a question, please keep muted so we can all hear Jamie. And thank you so much for being here, Jamie. I will let you take it away.
It is such a pleasure. Thank you. Oh, I didn't mean to do that yet. I don't love technology. I actually would love to take it off of share view, but I'm afraid to because I'm worried if I do that I won't be able to get back on. So thank you for being here with me today. If you have seen me before, I would love for you to put that in the chat. I don't know if everybody is coming to us from the Denver metro area. So if you're from somewhere else, I would also love to know that. And I want you to know that it's perfectly fine to interrupt, to ask me questions, to push back on what I have to say. I invite that because one of the things I am trying to bring out today is that this is a safe discussion to have. We can talk about it. It is really okay. And I'm going to ask Erin to monitor the chat and interrupt me if need be, because again, I'm like afraid to get off this main screen because I'm worried I won't be able to get back. So I want to thank Erin and the Parkinson Association for bringing me today. Erin and I met a few months ago, and I was just blown away by her passion for this and her compassion. I know that Parkinson's is very difficult and it's difficult to live with. And I imagine that all of you who are navigating this, whether you're the caregiver or the person who has Parkinson, that some of this is going to resonate for you because we are talking about things that our society is not very equipped to talk about. And I find that difficult illness fits right in there, that our society wants to say, you're young, you're strong, you're going to be fine. And there's just some things that we're not going to be fine. And we just don't do very well with those kind of things. We want people to just get better and get back to what they used to be. And I don't think that that is always something we can do. And that's true with some significant illnesses. And it's true with grieving. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. So this discussion, and that's what I really want it to be, is inspired by Dr. Alan Wolfelt. He is a grief researcher. We're lucky enough to have him in Colorado. He has the Center for Loss and Transition in Fort Collins. So if you're not already familiar with Dr. Wolfelt, I am really excited to introduce you to his work. And we're just going to talk about some things that we're not used to talking about. So let me tell you a little bit about myself and how I got into this. I have been the director of pre-planning at Feldman Mortuary for more than 16 years. When I am not here doing this work, I'm with my family. You'll see my family there. This is my husband right next to me in the blue. And on either side of me are my children. The one in the glasses is my younger son, Dan. And the one at the front is my older son, Alec. Alec is 30, Dan is 27. I'm very lucky that they live in Colorado, and they really are the most important things to me. My family is the most important. Being their mother has been the best role I've ever had. I also have what I would call my third child, Dewberry. You see him in the top right corner. Dewberry is a yellow lab who was in training with Canine Companions for Independence. Some of you might be familiar with CCI. They raise dogs for people who are in wheelchairs or who are hearing impaired. And the training for the CCI dog is so extensive and so expensive that if they know a dog is not going to make it all the way through, they send that dog for a career change. And we're lucky enough that Dewberry washed out of the program, and we were able to get him, and he's actually a grief support animal at Feldman Mortuary, and he is so special to me. And while I'm going to spend a lot of time telling all of us that mortality is real and we have to face the fact of our mortality, as far as Dewberry is concerned, that just doesn't apply. He needs to live forever. When I am not working or with my family, I am registering people to vote. That's very important to me. And I do a lot of other volunteer work. On the bottom right, you're going to see me. I won an award given by Jewish Family Service, and I'm so proud of that. And I decided to go back to skiing. I used to be a skier until I was 20, and then I gave up on that. And at 52, I decided to go back, and I love it so much. So the first question people ask me when they hear that I help people do their own funeral planning long before they need it, they say, how did you get into this? What a strange job. Because most of us will never have met somebody who does this work unless they're meeting me. I really have no business in this job. I don't have a background in psychology or social work, but I do have a long history of being able to talk about hard stuff. I was a peer counselor when I was in high school. In college, I was teaching people about AIDS. That was in the 80s. I just like to push up against taboos. And when I was 26 years old, my very close friend, Michelle, who you see in this picture, was diagnosed with a glioblastoma. So that's a terminal brain tumor. Everybody in her life, all of our friends, her family, even her husband, who was studying to be a surgeon, said to her, "You're young, you're strong, you're going to beat this," just like we always do. And I don't know why, but I didn't say that. I said, I'm not going to tell you it's going to be okay. And you don't have to tell me it's going to be okay. Because we both know it's not going to be okay. People don't survive a glioblastoma. It's a terminal disease. No matter how much they fight, how many treatments they have, they're not going to survive it. At least now, and hopefully that won't always be true. But that was true 28 years ago when Michelle was diagnosed. You will see her there holding her baby son, Max. My son, Alec, who's currently 30, is in the front of that picture. We talked about what it would be like for her not to be able to raise her child, what it felt like to know that her husband would need to move on and hopefully find new love again, which he did. We just talked about everything, all of her fears, all of the things that weighed on her and the things that weighed on me about her illness. And I felt so grateful to have those conversations. Since she died when we were 28, I have had a much easier time living with that loss, because I know we said all the things that we needed to say to each other, and she lives on my left shoulder. And I'm so grateful that she brought me into this work. Erin, I see you came onto the screen. Go ahead.
We do have a question in the chat. If you have some advice or, hope you can tell us how you respond to people when they say, sorry, mind freeze. When they're talking about how, like, responses to when people have these
You're young, you're strong, you'll survive this. You'll be okay.
Yep. These
It's
diseases.
really a hard thing. It's really a hard thing. We don't want to be rude. So sometimes we just let it pass, which maybe that's what you need to do in a lot of situations. Certainly when it's not people who are very close and meaningful to you, I might just let it pass. But I guess what I would say to those people who really matter, I need to be able to talk to you about the truth of what I am experiencing. And when you tell me it's going to be okay, that shuts me down and makes it so I can't share with you. So I would really appreciate if you wouldn't tell me it's going to be okay. Because I know it's not always going to be okay. And we can have lots of hope and we can have lots of optimism, but I need to be able to share with you the truth of my experience. If anybody else has some other thoughts on how to talk about it, please put that, put it into the chat. Feel free to raise your hand. If you've had some experiences that might be better language than what I've just shared. But that's what I would try to say, is to have something along the lines of, I need to be able to be authentic with you. And if you are telling me, nope, it's fine, we're not going to talk about it, I can't be authentic with you. Thanks for asking. So let me go on to the next thing. I want to talk a little bit about what happens to us when someone we love dies. And again, I think that a lot of this can be put onto a situation with a very difficult illness. But I have just never seen a better representation of grieving than this sculpture. This sculpture is in Portland, and I believe the Portland Museum of Art. And what I love about this is that this just, I don't know, this just shows me what it feels like to grieve. We're bent over, we're exhausted, we're overwhelmed, we're heavy. All of the rocks just display the weight of grieving. And I just think this is the perfect representation for grieving. And our society doesn't want to really acknowledge this, but it has been my mission to help our society change, because we really need to learn how to talk about this stuff better. And we need to recognize that we need when we're grieving. Dr. Alan Wolfelt says that we live in a generation that really has not had to grieve very much. Most of our deaths happen at an old age, and they happen in medicalized settings. And so unlike previous generations, we don't live with that dying process. It's behind a curtain. And so we really believe that we can jump over grieving and get back to normal. And that is not true. When we have a death of somebody we care about, there is no normal to go back to what we try to do in our society is just disappear the body. So somebody dies, a funeral home comes and takes it away. We send it to the crematory. We never see it again. And maybe we have no ritual at all because we just think, well, I don't need it. We just need to get rid of that dead body and then I'll be fine. Everybody will be fine. And the person who died likely said to us, oh, I don't need a funeral. When you're dead, you're dead. Erin, do you have some questions in the chat?
I do. I have two. The first one is, how do you respond to someone of deep faith that wants you to believe something you don't believe in?
Oh, those people have really the best of intentions, don't they? They really have the best of intentions. And we've heard like these platitudes. God doesn't give you anything more than you can handle. He's in a better place. All of those kinds of platitudes. And that person of deep faith likely believes that, but it is not helpful. And I guess I just really would invite you to be as courageous as you possibly can. And again, if it's somebody who matters to you, sometimes it's just not going to be worth the energy expenditure. So don't do this with everybody because you might hear this from, people who are relative strangers and I don't know if you need to engage with them in this level, but anybody who you feel you need to engage with on this level, I would say that doesn't resonate for me. And you can tell me that God doesn't give me anything more than I can handle. But what I believe is I have to just handle whatever is given to me. And that's what I am doing. And the idea of saying that I should be fine with that is not helpful to me and is in fact hurtful to me. And in some way is telling me that I'm getting what I deserve. So I guess what I'm saying is I don't know exactly the right words and you should put them into your own words. But what I really believe is that you would be helping them by sharing, you're hurting me by saying this, and they will stop saying it to you. If you say that doesn't work for me, please stop saying that to me. And then you had a second.
I think on a very similar note, there's a question on what is the best way to respond when someone asks you if you believe in an afterlife?
Well, I would just tell the truth. I absolutely believe in an afterlife. I don't know what it looks like. And the reason I say I believe in one is that I feel people's souls in our building. So that's my belief. I'm pretty sure it's true, certainly true for me, but I would never tell you that's what you have to believe. And my conception of an afterlife is more of kind of an energy, and that while we're living, our soul, our consciousness is like a whirlpool. And when we die, it goes out into the river. That energy goes out into the river. So there can be lots and lots of conceptions of an afterlife, and different religious traditions certainly have different conceptions of an afterlife. I do think that one of the things that happens, though, is that if we can just say, when you're dead, it in my mind is sort of it's a denial. I don't know if it's a denial of what happens after death. I don't know, because again, I don't know what happens after death. But what I think it is a denial of what happens to the living after a death. And that's what we're really going to talk about today. So I want to talk about ceremony. So I mentioned Dr. Alan Wolfelt, and Dr. Wolfelt is, as I said, a grief researcher, but he's also a really high-end therapist. He is the therapist that people go to when their therapy, they've gone to 3 or 4 different therapists and they're still really having a hard time getting off the couch. And so they get sent to him because he's like the therapist. And the first thing he says to people who are really having a hard time allowing themselves to grieve, to process that loss, to metabolize those emotions, he says to them, tell me about the ceremony you have had. And almost invariably, those people say, oh, we didn't have a ceremony. We didn't do anything. We just disappeared the body. I don't think they would say it in those terms, but my mom was cremated. She didn't want anything, so we didn't have anything. And I am here to tell you that ceremony is incredibly valuable. Lots and lots of religions have a lot of ritual. And because we live in pretty secular society, we think we don't need the ritual that religion gives us, but ritual is important just for itself. And so many people think a ceremony is for closure, but that's not true at all. It's actually for initiation into the grieving process. Grieving is incredibly difficult, and we need a way to open the door to it. We need a way to push off the side of the pool, and ritual is what we need to do that. That's what allows us to start touching the grief and start metabolizing the emotions. The first thing that we need when we are grieving is to step into it, to embrace it, to allow all of the feelings to come up. And a good ritual, whatever that looks like, that doesn't mean you have to have a priest or a rabbi or an imam. It means you need to have a communal event that allows you to start embracing the pain. Because we need to start realizing what's really happened. When someone dies, we can know it, but it takes a long time to know it. And we have to step in and allow that pain to come up. Don't push it away. Allow it to come up, because otherwise it will get stuck in our body. It literally will get stuck in our cells. Does anybody have any thoughts about that? Please feel free to raise your hand, to put it in the chat. I know that this is different than what most of us believe. We want to push that stuff away and just get back to living. But this is what will help us to create our new normal. What we need in a good ritual is to tell the story. How many of you have found when something big happens that you need to turn to somebody else to make it real? One great example of this that I have is from my own life. I was in the parking lot of a Whole Foods and I was at a light, and there was a person, an unhoused person, who was asking for donations at that light. And the person in the car in front of me got out of their car and gave that unhoused person their coat. And that person who received the coat ran to my car window and said, "Did you see that?" Because they needed to share with someone, because it was an emotional and important event, and they needed someone else to witness it. That's what we need from a ritual, from a communal event, to tell the stories, to tell the stories about what happened in the lead up to somebody's death, if they had an illness and this is what happened over the many years of that illness, or if it was a tragic and quick death, to be able to tell that. Yesterday we were navigating a funeral for somebody who just died in a car accident, and I got so many calls from people who just had to talk about what happened to this poor guy John and what they need, because this stuff is shocking and hard. And the truth of the matter is, even when somebody has had a prolonged illness, death itself is shocking. And we need to get together to tell the story of that. And we need to tell the stories of somebody's life and what they meant to us and what their history is and how they brought meaning to our life. So having a communal event is incredibly important. And I don't know about you, but like, I've been to many funerals that I walk out and I think, wow, I didn't know that story. I didn't know that part of that person's life, even when it's somebody who is really close to me. So having other people from different realms of that person's life is really valuable. And we get to know those people better. Sometimes I'll be at a funeral or I'm reading an obituary about someone I never met. And I think, wow, I really wish I would have known that person. That person is somebody who really made a difference in the world. So having a communal event that allows us to tell the stories and hear the stories is incredibly valuable. The next thing that we need to do when somebody dies, and quite honestly, when somebody has an illness, is we need to create a new self-identity. So like when our mother dies, maybe that makes us the matriarch of the family. That's a new identity. Or when a sibling dies, maybe we don't have anybody else who knows the stories of our childhood. Or when a spouse dies, we have a whole new title at that point. We're a widower or a widow. It's very important that we start to create that new self-identity. And I see that with people who've lost a child, because what do they do with that new self-identity? There's not even a name for it, because it's so horrific to lose a child. When we lose our parents, we're called an orphan, but there's no name when we lose a child. And I watch so many people who try to figure out how to talk about not having a child or not having one of their children. Like, how do they discuss this even? And so much of that is about their worry about how people are going to respond to them. If they say, well, I had 3 children, one of them died in a car accident at age 20, they don't know how people are going to respond, and they worry so much about making other people uncomfortable, and maybe they worry about other people telling them things that will make them feel uncomfortable. It's really hard. It's really hard. But we have to create that new self-identity. And these are the tasks that are assigned to us when we are mourning. And I want to just for a second talk about the difference between grief and mourning. Is anybody familiar with the difference between grief and mourning? I'll just tell you then. So grieving is the internal process, all of the feelings that are going on inside of us. Mourning is the externalization of that, getting the support, being able to talk about it, being able to share about it. And quite honestly, generations hence, had a lot, or past had a lot of, they had a lot of ritual and a lot of wisdom. People used to wear mourning clothes. They would wear black for a long time. And that told the community that they had a death. And so people would come to them and say, oh, I see you're in mourning clothes. Tell me about the person who died. And so they had that opportunity to really talk about it, but we don't give that to people in this society. And it's really too bad that people don't even have, if they don't have a ritual and they haven't had a notice in the newspaper, people don't have any idea that their person died. And so people aren't stepping up to support them, and they have to ask for the support. And oftentimes they just don't get it. So the next thing that we need to do in our needs of mourning is to search for meaning. And that is about figuring out what somebody meant to us. What did they provide in our life? How did they help us feel? What were they doing in the world that was really valuable? I think that oftentimes people get sort of stuck in this idea of making meaning of the death. And I don't know that there's always meaning of the death. And we talk about coming to acceptance of the death. And really what we need to be doing is coming to acknowledgement of the death. There are some deaths that are just not acceptable. And what I mean by that is, like, if somebody dies in a terrible accident, if somebody dies by, God forbid, murder or suicide, or very young, it's not acceptable. But we have to acknowledge that, yes, it happened. And that sounds sort of silly, but I'll tell you, I run into people who really just cannot acknowledge the truth of the death. One client that I have, her husband died a year and a half ago. He was 88. He'd had many illnesses, had been in the hospital many, many, many times, and he always survived those things. And the last time he was in the hospital, he died. And this poor woman is still not at all sure that he was actually dead when he was buried. And it is so hard on her. And on some level, she doesn't want to be sure that he was actually dead, because staying in this part of the grieving keeps her connected to him. And so she wants to be stuck there. I mean, wants is really, this is deeply difficult. But staying there allows her to stay closer to him. And so it's really, really, really hard. And she's not getting the help that she needs. And I think on some level doesn't want the help that she needs, again, because she wants to stay close to him. And this is the way to do it. And it's so challenging. But we do have to figure some of that out. And if we want to move forward on that path of not making the grieving smaller, but making ourselves be able to grow around it, if that makes sense. I want to just take a moment to ask if anybody has any questions or if they want to push back on anything I've said so far.
We do have a question from the chat. If you could maybe give some more clarity on like the mourning and grieving periods and what those may look like specifically for people with Parkinson's who maybe have like a longer period of time.
Yeah, this stuff is super personal. It's super personal. It's gonna depend on who you are and what kind of supports that you have. I cannot tell you what a time frame is going to be, but what I can tell you is that grief is a lifelong process. It is not the 3 days that we get off of work. It is a lifelong process. The best example that I've ever heard of grieving is the ocean. So imagine yourself in the ocean at high tide, and the waves are washing over you. This is in what acute grief feels like. The waves are washing over you, and you can't get your feet on the bottom of on the beach. You can't put your feet down. You're flailing around. You're worried you're gonna drown. You can't breathe. You're coughing. The waves are coming fast and furiously. That's the phases of acute grief that you're gonna see, where you just feel crazy. You're not as smart as you were before. You can't find stuff. You can't keep track of stuff. Emotions are coming fast and furiously. So that's in the acute phase of grief. And again, for each person, it's going to be very different. Some people are going to do that and it also might depend on what the relationship was with the person, but it's going to be very, very different. And then as you get further away and start metabolizing some of it, you're going to see the waves coming. You're going to know when they're going to approach. You can feel your feet on the ground. You can trust that you can survive this, and it gets a little bit easier, but every so often it's high tide again, and you don't know what to do. I'm going to tell you a story from my own life, and it's about my friend Michelle. So I shared with you, she died when we were 28. I'm 56 now. And I shared that she always sits on my shoulder. But a couple of years ago, her mom, Sandra, died. She also had a glioblastoma, which is not normal. It's not supposed to be hereditary. So I don't know why she also had a glioblastoma. She died. I was very close to Sandra as well. I loved her so much. And when she died, there was a public memorial service, and it was beautiful. But her son was the MC, and he did a great job. I mean, he's really funny. It was lovely. But in that memorial service, he said, "My mom said we're not allowed to cry." So he told funny stories. I cried. I don't know if anybody else did. I cried because I miss her. And then the next day, I said to my husband, I really need to go to the cemetery. There was, again, the public memorial and a private burial. And I was quite certain I knew exactly where the grave would be because she was buried next to Michelle. Even though it was many years earlier, I was absolutely certain I knew where it was. I did not know where it was. But I found it. I called her husband to find out where the grave was. And I got to Sandra's grave, which was next to Michelle's grave. And I cried so hard. And I missed Sandra, but my tears were about Michelle. And it was 26 years after her death. And it was so painful. But I will tell you, it was also so cleansing because for these many years, I've had really difficult feelings because Mark, Michelle's husband, and I had been friends since we were 4. And we were really, really close friends for our whole life. And we were very close friends during the couple years of Michelle's illness. I was the person who helped him clean out her closet. I mean, we were close. And then he got remarried and he moved I don't know, like 7 miles away. It shouldn't make a difference, but it does make a difference. And for all of these years, it's been so painful to me because I am certain that Mark doesn't love me as much as I love him because we've gotten very disconnected. And every time I ask him to get together, he won't. And it's been incredibly painful to me. And all of that is true. That's all true. But when I was at Michelle's grave 26 years later, I realized that a lot of what the pain has been is about the loss of potential. If Michelle had lived, my life would have been very, very different. We would have been couples friends. We were while she was alive. We would have traveled together. Our children would have been raised together. And I didn't get to have any of that. And being at her grave, all of that came rushing to me and overwhelming me and making me feel like it was the high tide. And yet I knew how to survive it because I've been surviving it all of these years. And it was so valuable because it gave me such an insight into myself and into my feelings. And it helped me to grow around the grief. And quite honestly, I'm still really sad that I don't have a close relationship with Mark, but it feels cleaner now because I was able to have that experience. And so, what I guess I'm trying to tell you is this is a lifelong process and things are going to keep coming up. There's going to be different triggers that are going to bring that high tide to you. And you have to let it come up. And it's valuable, it's meaningful, it's important. But I wish I could say, yep, it goes like this. And quite honestly, our society has tried to medicalize grief and say that if you're still grieving a year later, that means you have a pathologized kind of grief and you need to go to your doctor. And maybe you do need to go to your doctor. Sometimes we need medical supports for this, but it doesn't make it a pathology. Grief is a natural experience. It's a healthy experience. It's not negative. It's painful, but it's not bad. I hope that makes sense.
We have another question, and you kind of talked about like the lifelong process. And there's a question about what about fear while watching someone get closer to death?
Oh, you guys. Oh, yeah. What about fear? Yeah, it's really scary. And if this is your person and you've walked life together and you are pretty sure you're not going to have that person, yeah, it's scary. It's so scary. So, one of the things that I would say is I can't take that away from you. But what I can do is encourage you to get the supports and things set up that you're going to need. What I mean by that is to have all the paperwork in order. Make sure you have those powers of attorney. Make sure you're having the conversations about what that person wants as far as the care that they would receive as their illness progresses. Really talk about it. And what I want you to know is that talking about it doesn't make anything happen. Talking about it turns on the lights. Have you ever like woken up in the middle of the night and you're so agitated and you're so worried about something, and then in the morning when it's light out, you can go, oh, I'm not so sure why that was so scary to me. I know how to handle that stuff. I can deal with this. That's what I'm inviting you to do with this. So really have the conversations. And we're taught not to have the conversations. We put up our hand. No, don't talk about that. I don't want to think about that. And I understand not wanting to think about it, but we have to think about it. And the truth of the matter is, while all of you have a little bit more of an idea of what your death is going to be, every single one of us is terminal. Life is a terminal illness. We are all going to die. And you might have a better idea of why, and maybe you even have a better idea of when, but I think that that is true for all of us. That is true for all of us. I just shared with you about the person we're caring for right now. He was 69. He was fine. He died in a car accident yesterday. We're also taking care of somebody who is like in his mid-30s and just died of an accidental overdose. I mean, things happen and we don't know when they're going to happen. But what we do know is that they are going to happen. So let's set up the things that we need. Get all the paperwork, understand the finances, know where things are, get a funeral plan put in place so that we can continue to hold our loved one's hand when we're not here to do it. And if we can put those supports in place, it takes away some of the fear. Not all of the fear for sure, because what are we going to be like? What is our identity going to be like without that person who we love so much? I can't fix that for you. And there is no amount of paperwork that is going to fix that for you. But I do want you to talk about all of those pragmatic things so that you can know what you need to do. And that might take away some of the fear because it won't feel so unknown. I hope that makes sense. So there's some things that I also want to get across. And I don't really care. Like I have a few things I want to share with you, but really I want to make this meaningful for you. So please, I'm really glad that we're at 12:45 and I'm on slide 4. I don't care, but I just want to make sure that you get your needs met. So more questions are great. The other thing that I want you to know is that it's so important in grieving to receive ongoing support from other people. Ongoing. What happens in our society is that most people show up for us for a little while, and then because they can't make it better, they go away. And they go back to their normal life because they're not experiencing this. So we need to set up some ways to continue to get ongoing support. And it might not be our very closest people. It may be people that we get in a bereavement support group, or from a hospice support group, or from the Parkinson's support group, that we can share with people what we are experiencing, and they will not necessarily give us feedback, but will just be there to witness what we're experiencing. I almost want to say it's like the AA model of just being there. You say what's on your mind. Nobody tells you, oh, here's what you should do. They just hear you. And that's really, really valuable. So we have to figure out how to receive ongoing support. And again, I want you to recognize this is not a short-term issue. This is a long-term issue. So I talked a little bit about why we need to be planning. You all know that you're going to get to the end of the line sometime. The truth is everyone should know we're going to get to the end of the line. I put my own plans, my funeral plans in place when I was 42. I have all my advanced directives. And quite honestly, I talk about this stuff with my family all the time. There's a lot of dementia in my family. I just learned how much. My grandmother had it. My aunt on the other side of my family had it. And a cousin just told me that all of my grandmother's sisters had it. I'm pretty sure that my mom is on the road to it now. And I have been talking to my family about what I want, if for some reason I will get it, and what I want for them. And we talk about it so much that we actually have a joke about it. I am now, as I said, 56 years old, and I forget a lot of words. And I have shared with my family that if I don't remember one word specifically, that's when we have some other plans in place. And that word is synthroid. I have to take synthroid because I don't have a thyroid. And so when I can't come up with words, and I'll go, oh, synthroid, synthroid, synthroid. And it's great that we can talk about it and joke about it. But interestingly enough, when I talk about it, my husband will be like, okay, I get it. I know. We know what we're going to do. But so I would really encourage you to start having those conversations if you haven't yet. And think about, like, from your disease process, what do you want to have that makes your life worth living? Really talk about those things. Really talk about those things. Be brave and have those conversations. And because I'm the director of pre-planning, why should you put your funeral plans in place? Again, as I said, most people will say, well, I don't need anything. When you're dead, you're dead. And I believe you. I think the dead guy is likely just fine. But the people who love that person need a path to walk on. They need the door to be open for them, to allow them to grieve in a healthy and healing way. And it's not just about getting rid of the body. Of course, we have to get rid of the body. If we didn't, something bad would happen. We can't just leave a body laying around. But that is really just one small bit of it. We need to have a path to walk on that includes a communal event and some ritual. So creating that path for your people is really important, because at the time of a death, most people don't have any clue what to do. And because they're grieving, they're not as smart as they were before. They're going to be fighting with their loved ones. They're going to be facing big expenses if no plans have been put into place. So it's really important that each of us make our funeral plans and do it now. And there are many, many, many choices in Colorado. On the left, you're going to see green burial. Green burial means the body is buried with no embalming and an all wood or biodegradable casket or no casket. It is really the most natural way. And so many people are concerned about using up space. I will tell you that there is no concern in the United States. In the United States, there is enough space for burial, for my understanding is 10,000 years. And when we bury a body, we're actually feeding the earth. It is the circle of life. Everything that grows comes from something that was dead. So burying the body in a natural way, not with embalming, not with a metal casket, but in a natural way, is the most natural way to do it. Another choice in Colorado is natural organic reduction. That is also known as body composting. That's the newest method. And the body is placed in a vessel with 4 times the body weight's organic matter. And then a kind of bacterial recipe is put in there. It's attached to really good oxygenation and every so often turned. And in about 4 weeks, all of the soft tissue has been turned to dirt. The bones get put through a processor to make them smaller, and they get put back in the box. And in a couple days, they are also dirt. Most people will not take all of the dirt that's created. It might be about 800 pounds. It can be donated if you don't want it all, or you can have as much as you want. Another option is, of course, fire cremation. Fire cremation is very, very common. And I think that the reason it's very, very common is because it's the cheapest option other than donating your body to science, and then your body would get cremated ultimately, by fire. But it also is a lot of myth. A lot of people think that you don't want to use up space, and so cremating is a good idea. From an environmental perspective, it's really bad. There's a lot of gas that's used, and the emissions are going up into the atmosphere. There's a cross-country road trip of gas that's used to make the fire that burns away all the soft stuff. Also, all the soft stuff immediately becomes carbon and goes up into the atmosphere. So it's actually a very big contributor to climate change. The funeral industry talks about ash. There's actually no such thing as ash in a normal retort, which is what the oven is called. There is ground bone. So what happens is that all the soft stuff gets burned away, and then the bone is left and it goes through a cremulator. That's how we have this on the left. On the right are cremated remains from water cremation. And that is a process where the body is laid in a vessel with water and an alkali that's similar to liquid soap. That rapidly transforms all of the soft stuff. And then what's left is the bone that goes through the cremulator. So in both cases, your family gets back the cremated remains. And also in both cases, they're done in a couple of hours. If you use the process we use for water, there's another provider in Colorado who uses an 18-hour process. And if you have questions about that, let me know. The other reason to plan now is financial. When you plan ahead, everything gets locked in at today's prices. And funeral homes are not allowed to accept money for services they're not providing today. So they put the money typically in an insurance policy. Sometimes it's just going to be held in escrow. Sometimes you're going to pay over a long period of time. Like in my case, I paid over 5 years. And if God forbid I had gotten hit by a bus, the balance would be taken care of. So it just depends. And most funeral homes will lock in all the prices. So you can see here how they double in cost every 7 to 10 years. So when you do it now, not only do you give your loved ones a path to walk on, but you give them a turnkey. So all they have to do is make one phone call, and they don't have to come up with money. A lot of people will say, well, I have life insurance. The vast majority of us will die without the life insurance that we bought. Most of us have term life insurance, which once we get to about 70 years old becomes so expensive that we drop it. And most of us who have life insurance have reasons for it. It's for a legacy for our family, or it's to pay off a house. It's to send our grandkids to college. Do we want 52,000 of it to go for our cremation? Wouldn't it be better to get today's prices for services that would be long in the future? So and because it's held by a third party, if you move, it can go with you. But the question to ask a funeral home is, does everything go with me? Or meaning all the growth of the insurance policy, or just the funds I've paid in? With me, if you do a plan with me and you move to Arizona, it all goes with you, all of the growth too. The only thing I want you to know, though, is no funeral home is going to say, oh, Feldman Mortuary's charges in 2025 were such and such. Okay, we're going to honor those prices, but it's going to be a bucket of money that would be paid toward that place. So if you're planning on moving, if you're going to move in 6 months, wait until you get to the next place and then do it there. We also might want to protect assets. If we're going to need Medicaid for our long-term care, we can protect our assets. And there's lots of ways to pay it. So it's worth talking about. You get peace of mind and protection. What other questions have come up? And then I think we're at the end of our time, but I'll stay if you want longer. Do we have questions, Erin?
We don't have any in the chat.
Okay.
But I will also put Jamie's information in the chat. So if you would like to reach out to her, please feel free. Par can also connect you. So if you want to reach out, I can also do a warm email between you and Jamie. And I'll do one last pause for any questions. Okay. Thank you so much, Jamie, for being here. We so appreciate
Such a pleasure.
you are such an incredible resource for the Parkinson's community. So thank you so, so, so much.